Breaking news, a Chicago police officer in custody tonight suspected of killing a woman.
The officer was off duty at the time.
Yeah, this morning, police responded to a home in the Galewood neighborhood where they found 29-year-old Andres Wolford dead. She had been shot in the chin. I spoke with her sister tonight, who says she had been dating the Chicago police officer for 2 to 3 years. They have a 9-month-old baby together. Wolford was a social worker. Her sister says Wolford was planning to break up with the officer, but still maintain a co-parenting relationship.
3 people are now hurt after a shooting in Belmont Cragin. Police say a woman and 2 men were sitting in a car here near Menard and Schubert early this morning when 2 people walked up to that car, fired shots into the car, and then ran off. Police tell us a 45-year-old man now in critical condition.
Police in the Belmont Cragin neighborhood on the city's west side are searching for a man who stabbed 3 people. It happened near the corner of Dickens and Mango around 5 this morning. CPD tells us an argument between 2 groups turned physical. A 40-year-old man swung a sharp object, stabbing the hands and arms of a 20-year-old woman, a 32-year-old man, and a 30-year-old woman.
The corner of Laramie and West Montana, the 5200 block of West Montana, to be specific, where this happened. And that is where we know police say the 21-year-old woman was struck in the shoulder and hand by gunfire. This woman was sitting in her car when she was shot, and she was transported to Illinois Masonic Hospital, where she was later pronounced dead.
Belmont Cragin, located on Chicago's northwest side, has a long and complex history shaped by waves of immigration, industrial growth, and, more recently, entrenched gang activity. What began as a working-class hub evolved through the 20th century into a diverse neighborhood, now predominantly Hispanic. Since the 1960s, the area has seen the rise and fall of numerous street gangs, starting with white greaser crews like the Chi-West and Gaylords, and later replaced by a wave of Latino gangs such as the Maniac Latin Disciples, Spanish Cobras, Latin Brothers, and Spanish Four Corner Hustlers. These groups have carved out territories, often linked to specific blocks and corners, with persistent violence, turf wars, and community trauma shaping daily life. Despite efforts to reduce violence, Belmont Cragin remains a battleground for active gang sets, many of which continue to assert presence through alliances, music, and neighborhood control.
Dead, another fighting for his life this morning after a shooting on the northwest side. Now you can see dozens of police officers were here at Diversia and Malvina. This was in the Belmont Central neighborhood around midnight. Police say this all started when they heard gunshots and saw an 18-year-old running with a rifle. When they arrested that man, they noticed he was shot. After a drive-by shooting in Belmont Cragin, dozens of evidence markers seen right here near Belden and Austin early this morning. Police say a 25-year-old and 29-year-old men were walking in this area just before 2 this morning when someone in a red car started shooting at them.
We are learning new details tonight about a deadly shooting inside a Walgreens on Chicago's northwest side. A store clerk confronts a woman suspected of shoplifting when another man intervenes, shooting and
Customers had no idea late last night the store turned into a crime scene. Officers were called 11:30 p.m. after a woman believed to be in her 30s was shot inside the store. Police say the clerk suspected the woman was shoplifting, and sources tell us he called a friend to come help. That friend and the woman began arguing and fighting, and that's when the man pulled out a gun, shooting the woman in the head. Surveillance cameras inside the store captured the shooting.
The robber is using a bicycle as a getaway vehicle in Chicago's Belmont Cragin neighborhood. Police tell us he's between 18 and 21 years of age and rides a black bicycle. He reportedly approaches teenage victims, asks them their gang affiliation, then pulls or implies a gun and demands their property. Now, it's happened twice in the last 3 days near Laramie and Alked and near Laverne and Palmer.
Belmont Cragin's origins trace back to 1835 when George Merrill settled near Armitage and Grand, opening a saloon for travelers at what would become known as Whiskey Point. Growth remained slow until 1882, when the Cragin Brothers Manufacturing Company opened at LeClaire and Homer, attracting workers and leading to rapid population growth. By 1889, the area was annexed into Chicago. The early 20th century saw waves of immigration, starting with Swedish, German, and Irish communities, followed by Polish and Italian settlers in the 1920s. The area continued to develop through the 1930s to 40s, gaining the name Belmont Cragin and becoming a hub of commerce with the rise of strip malls and shopping centers. By the 1950s and 1960s, greaser gangs began to emerge, leading to more organized gang activity. In 1965, the Chi-West gang became the first major street gang to settle in Belmont Cragin, followed by the Gaylords and the Taylor Jousters by the late 60s, who dominated the neighborhood alongside the Playboys in the 1970s. These gangs formed a white-dominated alliance aimed at keeping out what they saw as undesirables. The 1980s marked a turning point with the arrival of Hispanic street gangs, beginning with the Spanish Cobras at Armitage and Cicero. As industry decline and white flight accelerated, Latin gangs like the Maniac Latin Disciples, Latin Brothers, Milwaukee Kings, Imperial Gangsters, and Insane Dragons filled the vacuum. Gang warfare became intense, especially around Humboldt Park, now considered a major hotspot. By the late 1980s and into the 1990s, Hispanic gangs were firmly established. The Latin Pachucos moved in around in 1988 and took over Humboldt Park by 1997 after the Jousters faded out. The Spanish Four Corner Hustlers also emerged in the early 90s as a new Hispanic branch of the original Four Corner Hustlers. As the 1990s progressed, inter-gang warfare escalated among Hispanic sets. Some early groups like the Insane Unknowns and Latin Jivers faded, while new players like the Spanish Gangster Disciples and Gangster Disciples moved in. The 2000s saw a continued decline in white gang activity, with the Gaylords and Playboys fully leaving the area. Today, while violence has declined in the 21st century, gang activity still persists, particularly near Humboldt Park. The most dominant and enduring gangs in recent decades have been the Maniac Latin Disciples, Spanish Cobras, Spanish Four Corner Hustlers, and Latin Brothers, with the Maniac Latin Disciples and Spanish Four Corner Hustlers standing as the most powerful. A gang investigation led Chicago police to a major drug and weapons bust in Belmont Cragin on Wednesday. Officers executed a search warrant at a home on the 3000 block of North Mason Avenue, initially recovering 3 firearms and various narcotics. But during the search, they discovered a hidden basement room concealed behind a rack of pool cues. Inside, police found a safe containing 3 more handguns and 5,000 grams of suspected Mary. In total, officers seized 5 handguns, a shotgun, 7,000 in cash, and a range of drugs. The home's resident, 47-year-old Richard Viersba, a convicted felon, was arrested and charged with multiple drug and weapons offenses. He was ordered held without bond.
The federal government has indicted 2 men who they say murdered a teenager to increase their position in a Chicago street gang. The indictments came down today against 40-year-old Gary Roberson and 41-year-old Joseph Matos. Roberson is in custody, but Matos is still on the loose with a reward on his head. These are pictures of Matos. Both men accused 19-year-old Chris Carvajal in July of 2021. The feds say the 2 were trying to maintain and increase their position in the Milwaukee Kings street gang and randomly shot Carvajal.
2 alleged gang members are charged in connection with the murder of Illinois National Guard soldier Chris Carvajal. Gary Gotti Robertson and Joseph Troubles Matos are accused of shooting Carvajal on July 3rd, 2021. The indictment says the 2 shot him to maintain their position and protect their gang territory. They were charged on federal racketeering charges. At the time of his death, Carvajal was 19 years old and had just...
In June 2024, federal authorities announced another round of indictments, this time charging 2 longtime Milwaukee Kings members, Joseph Troubles Matos and Gary Gotti Robertson, in connection with the deletion of 19-year-old Illinois National Guardsman Chris Carvajal. According to the indictment, on July 4, 2021, Matos and Robertson lured Carvajal from a party in the Belmont Cragin neighborhood and shot him to death. Prosecutors allege the deletion was a cold-blooded gang hit committed for the purpose of maintaining and increasing their positions within the Milwaukee Kings. Robertson was arrested and pleaded not guilty. Matos, however, remains a fugitive under a federal arrest warrant. In a high-profile operation on May 17, 2024, FBI agents donning tactical gear and deploying flash-bang grenades stormed a home in Lincoln Square during a pre-dawn raid in search of Matos. He was not found, and the raid became a flashpoint in the local news, with photos of heavily armed agents on the front porch making the rounds in Chicago media. These indictments are a chilling reality. Even after the 2002 death of founder Shaky Ramos, the Milwaukee Kings continued to operate as a lethal organization, using deletion as a strategic tool of gang politics. Law enforcement officials have cited these recent cases as clear evidence that Milwaukee Kings, while less visible than during their 1980s peak, remain an active and dangerous presence in Chicago's criminal landscape. Though the old guard of the Milwaukee Kings faded with time, the gang's violent presence on Chicago's streets persisted, drawing the attention of federal prosecutors and law enforcement well into the 21st century. By the late 2010s, it was clear that the Milwaukee Kings, though diminished in visibility, were still deeply entangled in drug trafficking, firearms offenses, and deadly gang rivalries. In May 2019, Attorney's Office unsealed a sweeping indictment that brought national focus back onto the Milwaukee Kings. 4 alleged Milwaukee Kings members in May 2019 were charged under federal racketeering statutes with multiple committed in aid of gang activity. Prosecutors painted a grim picture. These young members allegedly carried out deletions across Chicago's northwest side to maintain and increase their positions in the gang. One example cited in court filings was the December 16, 2016 demise of 28-year-old Crispin Colas, a rival whom Martinez and Lozoya allegedly executed to earn rank within the Milwaukee Kings. The indictment accused the group of being part of a wider network engaged in distribution and violent enforcement, where brutal tactics were central to asserting dominance. All 4 defendants entered not guilty pleas and faced the possibility of life sentences if convicted. But the crackdown didn't stop there.
Bitch, all y'all King Johnny, stop bringing the police to my crib, ho. Shorty, you a bird, I get money, SD killer all day,
Today, their most active block is Marmora and Alkeld, where the legacy of Swift City M-Town Milwaukee Kings still echoes through graffiti, street lore, and turf identity. To the northwest lies Belden City, also known as On-Site World or Garo Gang, with strongholds at Belden and Mango as the main block, and Belden and Monitor, Belden and Major, and Grand and Major also heavily active. Further west, you'll find LWST, based at Laverne in Wrightwood, holding it down with a mix of old heads and young members continuing the legacy of the Imperial gangsters.
It's another dead body, no face, no case. Get back gangsta, kid, cash for the dead, psycho fan. This I'm making bring your place, got plenty.
Throughout the 1980s into the early 2010s, the Pachucos established multiple sets across the north side of Chicago. However, Laurel and Palmer is now the last remaining active section. The set adopted the name ATM World in memory of a fallen member who has met his demise in 2021.
What? CA City, nigga, have no pity, nigga, snake bite, nigga. We been out here, nigga, since 11 o'clock, folks. Get into it, and you see the phase, you see the boom shot. Hey, they coming though, but it's up, nigga, what up? What's happening, nigga, go crazy.
Mac Block holds down the corner of Cicero and Armitage, repping strong in that section of the city.
J-Gang is a northwest side set of the Spanish gangster disciples located in the Belmont Cragin neighborhood. The set was established in the early 2000s by a group of youth, many of whom attended Steinmetz High School. Despite starting small, J Gang quickly built up numbers and made a name for themselves within the local gang landscape. Mobile and Dickens is the main block held down by the Maniac Latin disciples in Chicago's Belmont Cragin neighborhood, known locally as Death Trap. This set relocated from Humboldt Park in the mid-1990s and has since established a strong presence in the area. Valeville is based around Belden and Lawler and represents the Latin stylers on Chicago's northwest side. Originally formed near Diversey and Kedzie in the 1960s, the stylers later expanded west into Blackhawk Park by 1996, eventually establishing a presence in Belmont Cragin. Today, Valeville stands as one of their most recognized sets in the area.
We out here all day, this is what we do, Joe. Y'all got tools, ain't no, you know what I'm saying? We out here killing y'all, Joe. Y'all unknowns, y'all ain't know shit. Y'all got two in the stomach, what's good, Joe? Fuck on the hustle, crazy. Chico killer, unknown killer, Joe. Jump out, boy.
Gangsta boogie. Gangsta boogie.
Unknown killer to the motherfucking day I died. Bitch, folk on the hustle crazy.
I know. Y'all niggas know what's up, folk crazy, nigga.
Nico World holds down Lockwood and Altgeld in the Belmont Cragin neighborhood and is run by the Four Corner Hustlers. Originally known as the Spanish Four Corner Hustlers, the crew dropped the Spanish label by the mid-2010s. The set traces its roots back to the late 80s and early 90s. Formed under the leadership of Angelo, one of the top Four Corner hustler figures in the city.
With my nigga EK, we catch an eagle and he won't fly away.
PDubb is a Maniac Latin disciple set based at Parkside and Wellington in Chicago, known locally for its presence and influence in the neighborhood. The set is also tied to the local music scene through rapper Grimmy Kilo, who represents the block in his tracks. Latin Gangsters are based at Lotus and George in the west side of Chicago. This block serves as a stronghold for the crew, with the Latin Gangsters maintaining a long-standing presence in the area. Chillyville is a Latin King set based at Lockwood and Wellington in the Belmont Cragin neighborhood. This block has been held down by LMG Kings and serves as a key spot for the crew's presence on the west side. Brother City is the insane Latin brothers set holding down Belmont and Cicero in the heart of Belmont Cragin. Founded in the 1980s by members who migrated from 17th Street in Pilsen. This set established deep roots in the neighborhood and remains one of the core Latin brother blocks on the northwest side. No Good City represents the Simon City Royals set based at Diversey and Laramie. Established around 2009, this block has become known for its consistent conflicts with surrounding Latin crews. Trojan Point traces its roots to 17th Street in Pilsen, where the Lockwood Berry Latin brothers first formed before relocating to Belmont Cragin in the 1980s. Known for their deep neighborhood ties and evolving identity, the crew established a stronghold in the area under the name Trojan Point. Among their cultural voices is rapper Trigger Main, who represents the group's legacy and street influence. While Belmont Cragin's gang landscape has shifted from its white-dominated past to a largely Latino-controlled dynamic, many of the same challenges endure: crime, generational gang ties, and street-level violence. Even as overall violence has decreased from its peak in the 1990s, hotspots like Hanson Park and intersections such as Armitage and Cicero still reflect ongoing territorial tensions. Community-led initiatives and social programs are striving to reclaim the area from its violent past, but gangs remain deeply embedded in the social fabric. The future of Belmont Cragin will depend not only on policing, but also on sustained investment in youth, education, and economic opportunity to dismantle the influence of these entrenched organizations.